Hey guys, what's going on? It's Colin here again. I just got back from picking a bunch of really cool stuff up, so I might be a little excited sounding in this video, but I figured we'd do another Musty One style Will It Run kind of video with a couple engines I picked up, this being the first one. This is a VoltMaster, I can't say I've heard of that brand before, generator, and it is model G4000 V2, and the maximum wattage is 4,000. I'm sorry, 5,000. I'm dyslexic. With a max amperage output of 36.7 at 120 volts or 18.3 at 220 volts. There you go. 120, 220 volts, 60 cycles, one phase. And it's a 3600 RPM generator. On the back here, you can see we have our outlets. There, it's got different labels for the power output, so that's interesting. And powering this beast is a Briggs & Stratton of sorts. I'm going to guess it's an 8 or 10 horsepower, but as you can see, the front shroud is missing. I'm going to guess this is from like the 80s or 90s, based on this plastic tank. I did get the rope thing for the recoil. It actually it's still got a sticker on it. That might be brand new. My theory with this is that, let's see. Yeah. So basically every single one of these engines I've worked on from like the 60s through the 90s that have this same recoil thing, what tends to happen is that this gets gooey inside and it locks up. So you can see I'm trying as hard as I can here to turn this super stiff, and what happens is it doesn't ratchet like it's supposed to. So normally these lock going one way so you can crank it, and then it's supposed to free spin the other way so that when the engine starts up it doesn't, break everything. What tends to happen is these get gooey and they stick. So you crank it over, it starts, and then it twists this thing and the spring and everything up, and it makes this horrible screeching noise as everything breaks. And then you're left with a broken recoil, which has happened on pretty much all but one of this type of engine I've played with. So yeah, this is no exception. So that's probably what happened there, is that this wound itself up at several thousand RPM and broke everything. So that's my guess as to what happened here. I don't have any pieces. I really don't know anything else about this thing because it was my friend's dad, knows I'm into engines and stuff, and then his friend was cleaning out his mom's place, found this generator and another small engine thing, which we will go over in another video. Gave it to my friend's dad, who's also kind of into engines and stuff, and he said, I don't really need this. I bet I'll let Colin play with it. So he gave it to me, so I really don't know much about it. It looks like after it blew up, it's been sitting for a little while. But in this video, I figured we could do, a Musty One kind of Will It Run video. See if we can't get this thing to start up and make some power for us. So let's dive right in. So, like I said, I really don't know anything about the engine and its condition or anything. The only thing I know is that, everything on the carburetor seems free. It does turn over. It has a tiny bit of compression, not a lot. And it looks like it's a magneto with no points. So that's good, we don't have to worry about that. Otherwise I really don't know anything. So I think what we're going to do first is check to see if this thing has spark. And the spark plug is unfortunately a little buried, so I'm going to have to take some other crap off. But let's see what we can do here. I'm just going to actually bend the stuff out of the way. See if this won't come out with too much trouble. There we go, that wasn't bad. I'm going to have to find some way to crank this thing over without the cord on there. That plug looks pretty dirty to me. Looks like there's a bit of carbon buildup. Oh yeah, there's definitely carbon buildup in there. My sockets are rolling down the driveway. I can see the intake valve going up and down, so that's good. But it looks pretty dirty. these pointless systems, you can't just, you know, let's try that again. I'm having a lot of trouble speaking today, apparently. The old systems, like the ones that they used up until like the 60s, with the square coil and stuff, you could spin it over about that fast and know if you have spark or not. These new pointless systems, you have to get it going pretty fast to be able to see if you have spark. I'm going to see if I can't rig something up with this, so we can just wind a rope around there and just pull it like the old style. I'll be back in a second. Alright, so I found the probably the best way to do this, for now at least. It's just drill start it. This should fit on there. Make sure I can see the spark plug here. Ground that out somewhere. There we go. Here we go. Alright, I don't know if you guys can see that, but we have a nice strong spark. So that's good. Let me get you a better shot. Hopefully the autofocus is good enough. Here we go. Now I don't see any. Huh. Maybe we just have a bad ground here. Come on. I promise you, I saw some before. It's making a liar out of me. Oh yeah, just a bad ground. You're gonna have to take my word for it. I apologize for the not great camera angles, but I don't really have a proper workbench to work on for this kind of stuff. So I have to work on the ground, so it's not exactly the best. What I'm gonna go ahead and do next is try and fix this recoil starter. Normally I would crank it up, just dump a little gas in the cylinder, crank it up, make sure we get power output. But I'm not quite comfortable doing that, knowing how sticky this thing is. So we're gonna fix this first. They actually used this exact same design all the way from the late 50s when they first invented it to at least the 90s. I haven't seen any newer engines. I haven't worked on many newer engines, you know, of this kind of style. So they definitely used it all the way into the 90s. I think they just kept using it because one, it worked. Two, it was really simple. And it generally worked well. It's just when the engines got older and things started sticking that they had issues. Gonna put that in there. Oh look, actually somebody's been in here already. Would you look at that? Huh. These are actually just thread on, if you're wondering. Wow, that's really stuck. Alright. Well, we'll fix it. There go all the ball bearings. I promise you I saw that coming. Oh, there goes the last one. I hope this comes off of here nicely. Wait, there's one more. Let me get that out of there. This piece should slide right off, just to give you an idea of how stuck this is. Wow. There's your problem right there. I might not even have to take this stupid thing off. Just the fact that this is so stuck should tell you the whole story. Come on. Wow. There's some sticky crap on here too. Huh. I'm not even going to bother taking this whole thing off. This came apart right here. If you wanted to take this off, you'd jam the flywheel and knock downwards on one of these like I was doing before. But this is our main issue right here. This has to get lubricated and this shaft has to get cleaned. So let me grab some lubricant and stuff. Alright, so I just grabbed a little sandpaper here. I normally use this for cleaning points and stuff like that. But it should be a rough enough grade to clean this crap off, I would hope. And if it's not, well, I'll go grab some more. I'm also just going to hit this with a little WD-40. I know it's not the best lubricant, it's really a degreaser, but it will work. See, it's already better. Look at that. See? Sometimes using WD-40 as a lubricant works. Alright, I'm going to grab a paper towel, wipe this stuff off. I'd say that's a little bit better. That's more what we're looking for here. The tricky part now is going to be putting this back together when it's sitting vertical like this. Might not be able to. So these balls all sit in their little cavities here. And what happens is when you turn it one way, they jam. So if you turn it that way, they jam. But if it spins this way, then they just keep rotating like that. And then there's this little cover here, the little seal, which I'm going to use a little more WD-40. And the seal should just sit on there like that. There's got to be some way that this is supposed to be held on, but I'm not really aware of what it is. So we're just going to put that on there and hope for the best. And just I'm sure there's a proper way of doing this. Oh, I missed one. Uh-oh. Well, now it's stuck on there. I missed a ball bearing. I don't think that would be the end of the world. But if it is, I'll pull it apart again off camera. Oh, look at me, already dumping screws all over the place. For those of you who are new here, you should know that I drop screws literally all the time, everywhere, in the most inconvenient spots possible. So, I'm just going to go ahead and put this mesh back on. That will also serve to hold this plate back on, or the keep it from coming off. I don't think that missing ball bearing should be an issue. I think the other one should be able to take its job. It should work well enough, but if it's not, I'll pull this apart off camera and fix it. Alright, that's good to go. Just going to hit that with a little more WD-40 in there. And this is how it's supposed to work. You should be able to just spin it one way and you engage it the other way and it should spin the engine like that. So, if I take my drill now and I spin it up and I stop, this should be able to spin that way and not engage it, and then spin the right way and engage it. So there we go. Let's see if she runs. Before we try and dump a little fuel right into the cylinder, let's make sure it actually has oil in it, because that would be rather tragic. Oh yeah, there's oil in there. It looks kind of dark, but it's in there. It's good enough for a quick test run. Alright, so in that case I'm going to spill gas all over the cardboard here. That's why it's here. If I had done that on my driveway, my parents would have killed me. Alright, so note to self, the cap was not screwed on. Good to know. Alright, I'm going to dump a little gas right into the plug hole here. And dump it all over the engine too, so we have a nice little fire. Another reason to have cardboard nearby, just in case something catches fire. Put this in. Just gonna tighten that off with a breaker bar again. Should be good enough for a test run. Alright. Let's see if she runs. Choke is off. I'm going to put it about halfway. Here we go. Hey! She's a runner. Cool. Alright, so now that we know it will run, I'm going to make sure it generates power before we go any further. Otherwise we have a nice engine. Just going to pull the air cleaner off, and there's another wing nut holding the filter in. Alright. Didn't know that was a thing. I've never actually worked on one of these where it had the updraft carb. All the style with the recoils, you know, like the newer ones I've done have been the, what are they called? The vacuum jet carb, where it's a tank and the carb in one, and they have the little like, you know, a little bowl inside the tank with a diaphragm that pumps the fuel up. It's a long wing nut there. There we go. That's one way of doing it. Just fling pieces everywhere. I'm going to dump a little gas right in here. That should be enough. I'm going to turn the choke on too. Let's see if it makes power. Well, we won't actually know if it makes power because my light fell over. Alright, I'll be back in a second. Alright, let's try that again, this time with earmuffs because it's kind of loud. Should be enough. Hey, we make power. Cool. We've got a good generator on our hands. Alright, so now we know it will generate power. It's time to dive into this carburetor. Because this gasket is definitely not original, and that fuel line was not really on there so well. But we got our carburetor off now, so we can take it apart. Alright, so we can go ahead and take this thing apart now. I'm too lazy to get the right tool at this point. So the other thing about not having a good workbench for this is can't work in the garage either, so I have to go grab everything I need from inside. It slows everything down, but oh well. There we go. Take the breather assembly off now. Cool. I believe these are called flow jet carburetors. Can't entirely remember though. But like I said, they're great when they work right, but they're a pain in the ass sometimes when they don't work right. This I might have to go get a proper wrench for. Oh wait, I have my wrenches. Whoops. Forgot I brought them out. Gonna guess that's a 7/16. That it is. Cool. So the way that these work is there is a main jet and a idle jet. There's a main jet tube that goes up diagonally through here, so you have to take this out first before you can separate the halves. I mean, you can do it without you can separate it without taking this out, but it's much harder. And on the antique engines, these really tend to get really stuck in there, and they're only brass tubes, so you have to be really careful when you take them out. I recommend grinding down an old screwdriver so they fit pretty much just right, which is what I've done with this yellow screwdriver here. You can see, if I take this out, you can see actually that's pretty dirty up at the top there. But this screwdriver fits pretty much perfectly in that jet. This has definitely been apart before. I can tell somebody's pried on that a little too hard. But there's some weird goopy stuff at the top. Then you could separate the two halves. These screws were not very tight either. So that needle on the bottom is for your higher RPM adjustments, and then this needle right here does your idle adjustments. Mixture adjustments, that is. The actual idle screw is this one right here. Which, if this thing does run well, I might try and see how low we can get it to chug, just for fun. It's totally not necessary for a generator, but it's kind of fun to do. Alright, so this should come apart now. Like that. Any tool can be a hammer if you try hard enough. Wow, we probably didn't need to take this apart aside from that jet. Look at how clean that is on the inside. They must have shut the gas off before they put this thing away, and that gasket looks brand new. I wonder if somebody's rebuilt this recently. I kind of have to wonder, because everything looks very clean and new. Like, that gasket is like brand new, and that gasket on the top between the engine and this top half was homemade. There's your needle that just went flying. Don't lose that. That's important. There's your float. Somebody's patched that float, so they got a hole in it at some point. Yeah, somebody's definitely been in here before. This gasket, there's no way this is original. Alright, sorry about that. I did get this gasket off just really carefully with a screwdriver, and then the last thing I'm going to take off is this idle jet adjustment. So like I mentioned, this adjusts the mixture at your idle. There's a little jet down in there. There we go. This is ready to soak in some chem dip. This gasket up here, as I mentioned, was homemade, and it is kind of falling apart, so I might have to make a new one. But that would disintegrate in the chem dip anyway. So I'm going to grab my chem dip, speaking of it, and let's let this soak. They say this stuff existed in 1919. I can only imagine how bad it was back then. I mean, this is not good to touch now. It probably would have, like, dissolved your skin instantly. I heard from somebody that used to use this stuff back in the 80s, that even in the 80s, if you left aluminum in it for too long, it would start to dissolve. So imagine what it was like in 1919. God. So I'm going to drop all these small parts in here. Just let them all get cleaned. Except for this. I've had this... Well, actually, yeah, that can fall through. Not doing that. The float, I mean, the needle is clean too. I'm going to leave that out. But this tube, definitely. This is the main part that really needs to get clean. And the lower body, I'm going to just kind of dunk in there. It's time for a bath. And I'm going to throw the float in there too, just to make sure it stays afloat. Alright. I'm going to let that soak for a while, go eat my lunch, and I'll be back. Alright, bath time's over. Pull this stuff out. Normally I would let it sit for a little longer, but I think just judging by how clean this thing is, that I don't think it will need it. Oh, so good news, our float is still floating. So that little patch that they did seems to be holding. Put that down. Try and get as much of this chem dip out of the pieces that have been dipped as possible. This stuff was pretty cheap. I think it was like 20 bucks for this whole thing. And you can keep using it and using it and using it. It's great. As you can see, it pretty much took all the paint off of all this. So that should give you an idea of how strong this stuff is. Right there. That tube looks a lot cleaner now, which is good. That's what it's supposed to do. Put that back down, put the lid on, and get it out of here. Actually, I have a hammer right nearby. Why am I... Alright. That's all good now. Alright, so if this carburetor were dirtier, I would definitely go and blow all the passages out with compressed air. But once again, this thing was so clean that I'm not even going to bother. I think it will be fine. Just going to go ahead and reassemble this thing now. The little float gets hooked onto here, like that. And it just plops right back in down into its seat. I meant the needle, I said the float. And then the little pin gets put right back in there, like that. Make sure the float is... Well, first of all, make sure the pin's in all the way. Is the pin bent? No, I'm just failing to put it back into its hole. There we go. You always want to make sure that when you look at it that the float is level, or at least the same level from the top here all around. So as you can see, that one's pretty good. Call it good enough. Then these two are going to mesh right back up like that. Put our screws back in. Make sure the gasket is lined up. You don't want to punch another space into that gasket, have it leak everywhere. These carburetors are pretty notorious for leaking. generally because the seals go bad over time. So like I said, they're great when they work, but when they don't work, they are a pain in the ass. They tend to leak everywhere, they tend to not work right, the jets don't come out easily, they strip. It's a mess. I've had some pretty bad ones. I ruined the bottom half of one of these on one of the old square, the 4-bolt ones, because the jet that was in there completely stripped and broke actually. When I was trying to work the top off, I broke it. I was able to drill it out and get a reproduction jet in there, and it worked, but it leaked everywhere, so I had to abandon it and get a whole nother lower body. I'm gonna tighten these down as evenly as possible here. Alright, we can put our main jet back in after I wipe it off. All these little passages need to be cleaned. And it looks like they are. Good. Chem dip did its job. And I'm going to get the special magic screwdriver here. YouTube user Zippo Varga, I think I'm saying that right, has a great, he has a bunch of good videos on these carburetors. Especially with like making the screwdriver and how to make them not leak and all that stuff, and he actually has a whole rebuild series. If you have one of these carburetors and it's not right, I would recommend checking it out. The main thing I took away from the videos that I watch is once this is tight, you always want to crank it just a little bit tighter. That one actually pretty tight. Sometimes you get like a little creaking noise. Make sure it's seating 100%. Probably gonna have to play with the adjustments on this thing now because it's all out of whack. I believe the general rule is a turn and a half out on both. There's one turn. There's a half. This one I'll just leave, and if it's wrong, I'll fix it. I'm going to go ahead and throw this back on off camera because it's a bit of a pain in the ass and you probably won't even see much besides the back of my head. So I'll be back in a second. Alright, so I went ahead and put it back on just without the air filter temporarily, just to make sure that one, it doesn't leak, and two, if I didn't adjust this right, then I can get to it. Then I'll go, once I'm positive that it's running right, then I'll go ahead and put the air cleaner back on. But I figured for now, let's take a look in this gas tank, and if there's anything in there, we'll have to clean it out, but if there isn't any, then we can fire it up. I just realized there's a fuel valve under here I didn't see earlier. Huh. But, alright, let's look in the gas tank. Gas tank's dry and super clean inside, so I'm going to go ahead and put some gas in. Not too much though, because I'm almost out. I don't know where my camera died there, but tank's clean and dry, so I filled it up. And we're going to go in for a start and see how I did. See if this runs. Wow. It seems to be running rather fast, if you ask me. Wonder if there's something not quite right here. Alright, so I can't really seem to make sense of this governor system. So, I guess I'll just plug it into plug a load into it and see what happens. But for now, I want to try and get this thing to idle, at least. Just because, but anyways, I'm going to fire it up again, see if I can't get it to idle. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead, fire this thing up, and put a pretty hefty load on it with a space heater. Let's see how it does. Alright, I thought that was running a little fast, but wow, those readings are way off, so this thing's definitely running too fast. The frequency is related to the RPM. I'm getting 67 Hertz instead of 60, so I guess I have a little adjustment to do with the governor. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera, save you guys the noise and the boredom, and I'll be back in a minute. Alright, so it runs, it makes good power. I'm going to call that one a success. I really can't run it for that long though. I don't know if you can tell there's smoke coming off the head because I don't have the cooling shroud on it. But I'm going to call this one a big win. So anyways guys, I'm going to worry about that shroud and after the video's over now. I just wanted to make sure that it was all good and that it was worth even repairing the shroud that I have. So thank you guys for watching. If you like what you see, hit the little subscribe button. It turns out that only 10% of the people who view my videos are actually subscribed. So if you like what you see, there's more coming. Hit that little subscribe button. Leave a comment if you have one, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.